Welcome back to Storytime Recap. Today, I will talk about a science fiction mystery drama movie titled Project Almanac. Without further ado, let's get started. David Raskin, a senior in high school, and his pals Adam, Lou, and Quinn Goldberg are putting a theory to the test as David's sister Christina records the event. This movie was created in order to be considered for a scholarship at MIT. David demonstrates an airplane that he built and can control by applying a substance to his fingertips in order to move it. When someone phones David's phone, the group lets loose the craft outdoors and simultaneously blocks Quinn's laptop from receiving a signal to link with the object. The vehicle tumbles to the ground and shatters upon impact. After a few weeks have passed, David is handed an envelope that was sent from MIT. He invites Christina and their mother Kathy, along with Adam and Quinn, to join him as they break it open. David is dissatisfied because he is accepted into MIT, but he is only given $5,000 in scholarship money rather than the intended $45,000. We find out that David has a secret admiration for a student at this school named Jessie Pierce. In front of his whole class, Quinn receives a failing grade on a chemistry exam. Sarah Nathan, the head bitch at the school, picks on Christina and makes her life miserable. After returning to their residence, David and Christina learn that Kathy is making efforts to sell the house. David comes back later and investigates the attic. When Christina arrives, they discover a film of David's 7th birthday celebration that was hidden upstairs. It was the final day that the two of them were able to spend time with their father Ben before he was killed in a vehicle accident. As the two watch the film, David sees something peculiar. Despite the passage of time, he can still be seen in the footage in his current form. When he plays the footage for Adam and Quinn, they are both taken aback by what they see on it. David becomes obsessed with the film and begins to notice minute details, such as the blue stain that is on his shirt and the fact that he is carrying keys that are attached to a ballerina figure keychain. When he opens his bag, he finds that he is not carrying his own, but rather Jessie's. He makes his way over to her location in order to hand it back to her while also making clumsy attempts to strike up a conversation with her. He hands the bag back to her, and she offers her congratulations on his acceptance to MIT. When the group visits David's basement, they find a hidden hatch in the floor that leads to a hidden compartment that houses the schematics for a temporal relocation device, also known as a time machine. The excitement builds among the guys, and they immediately start collecting the components they'll need to construct it. Following a series of unsuccessful experiments, they decide to take hydrogen canisters from the school in order to properly charge their batteries. They are successful in activating something that causes the things in the basement to float, but the batteries continue to short circuit. One night, there is a party going on at the house next door. Jessie drives up and parks her vehicle in David's driveway after bringing it there. In order to test their next experiment, the group attaches their wires to her car's battery. They are attempting to send Christina's red toy Corvette across time. Just as Jessie walks in and sees what they are doing to her car, they turn on the machine. After the ground starts to tremble and things start to float around in the room, the power suddenly goes out on the entire block. After the lights are turned back on, the gang realizes that the toy vehicle did go through the time and is now connected to the wall in some way. They glance at the GoPro camera that they mounted to the car and discover that it was already sitting there recording them while they set up the equipment. Jessie comes over to hang out with the gang as they show her David's birthday video and demonstrate their abilities to her. They come together that night in the neighborhood and make an attempt to travel back in time to the previous evening. They start the machine, and then they go through time. For a little second, the gang loses their hearing and becomes bewildered. They hasten their way to Quinn's house, where they find Quinn sound asleep from the previous night. Quinn scribbles a grin on his own chin using a marker. The previous iteration of Quinn then turns over, wakes up, and is confronted by the version of himself that will exist in the future. This produces a disruption in the flow of time, and the two of them begin to vanish into thin air. The group quickly escapes the area, and after they have done so, they leap with joy since they have successfully time jumped. After making the jump, they find a dog waiting for them in the spot where they landed. They find that there are a lot of flyers that say lost dog that weren't there when they drove through the neighborhood earlier. They give the dog back to the person who should have had it all along. The members of the gang begin to contemplate the implications of their newly acquired power and come to the conclusion that they will be able to use it for their own purposes so long as they continue to travel through time together. Quinn utilizes it to his advantage in order to ace his chemistry test until he finally gets it perfect. Christina makes advantage of it to catch Sarah only a few seconds after Sarah is responsible for Christina spilling her drink, only for future Christina to turn there and purposefully drop beverages on Sarah, humiliating her and proclaiming, "I'm everywhere, bitch." Adam manipulates the passage of time so that his friends can win the jackpot. On the other hand, he was only able to get 5 out of the 6 figures correct, and their total income, after taxes, was just $1.8 million. Quinn continues to spend the money in order to purchase a fancy automobile for himself and to introduce a line of food trucks to the school. At the same time, David and Christina are overjoyed when they learn that Kathy has landed a new job. During the course of the lesson, David gets the group to leave the classroom and meet him beneath the bleachers. They fast forwards to 3 months ago for the Lollapalooza festival. They travel to see their favorite musicians perform and even manage to obtain VIP passes, after purchasing them at a discount on eBay in the present, which allows them to go backstage and hang out with the band. The crew is having the time of their life right now. They spend the entire day hanging out on water slides and partying. The romance between Christina and Adam blossoms. As the day draws to a close, David makes his way over to Jessie as she examines the wall that has the inscription "Before the World Ends," along with a list of activities that people would complete. Jessie gives David some massive indications, such as referring to the remark that says, "Before the world dies, I want to fall in love," as an example. The opportunity for David to make his move is lost, and they are later brought back to the present when just 41 seconds have transpired in the interim. David, disappointed with his performance, decides to attend Lollapalooza all by himself and makes his move on Jessie. After giving her a passionate kiss, he brings her back to the here and now. He is in his room and attempts to call Jessie, but he quickly realizes that her phone is on his desk. After using the restroom, she comes out wearing nothing but a towel. David inquires of her as to whether or not they had had sex. It seems that he was right. The two starts dating, but once they go to school, David begins to notice some strange happenings. The leg of the school's basketball captain, Justin, has been fractured. Sarah is seen sobbing as she passes David. A banner that reads "Titans basketball, better luck next year" is placed up somewhere in the arena. David finds out about the plane disaster from Adam and Quinn after school. The catastrophe claimed the lives of 77 people, including Sarah's father, who was the pilot of the aircraft. The guys believe that their participation in time jumping is to blame for both the basketball team's failure to win the title and this situation. After David has told Adam that he jumped by himself, the gang gets together later that night. David goes back to the night of the party all by himself, despite Adam's warning that he shouldn't do it again. After he and the others have turned off the electricity by jumping into Christina's toy vehicle, David goes out onto the street and pulls Justin out of the way of a car so that he does not break his leg. He is hailed as a hero by the other people at the celebration. David flashes back to the current moment and notices that not only did the squad win the championship, but the jet also managed to safely touch down. However, Adam winds up in the hospital after being involved in an altercation during the basketball game. David rushes back home and immediately begins thinking of ways to protect Adam from harm. As soon as Jessie walks down into the basement, he starts preparing the machine. They go through time together, but David is compelled to explain to her that he traveled through time alone in order to make his move on her in the past. Jessie's feelings have been damaged, and she confesses that she has liked David ever since they first met, and that if she had the machine, she would use it to travel back in time and meet him earlier. Then, Jessie's self from the past appears, and as soon as the two of them sight each other, she disappears entirely into thin air, only leaving behind her vehicle keys, which David quickly takes. David, seeing that he has no other option, comes to the conclusion that the only way to stop the machine is for him to travel back in time all the way to the day he turned 7. Following Jessie's disappearance, Quinn travels to his residence. David explains the entire issue to him and apologizes for his earlier error of judgment. After that, the police go to David's house because they have reason to believe he is complicit in Jessie's disappearance. David manages to get out of his house and rushes to the nearby school, where he steals an additional hydrogen canister. In a split second, before he takes the leap, he is able to refuel the machine just as the police officers storm in. David travels back in time 10 years and eventually finds his way back home. He looks at himself in the mirror, just where the video had brought him before. He then goes down to the basement with his father, where they finally have a face-to-face conversation. When Ben sees his son, he understands it was his son who made the machine operate. David warns him that there is no room for error and that they must put an end to this immediately. They have a warm embrace before Ben walks away. David assembles the various components of the time machine and then destroys them all. His physical form undergoes a series of brief transformations before dissipating entirely. David has returned to the present and is currently exploring the attic where Christina found him. They stumble into their father's video camera, which captures what they were doing and saying just a few short minutes earlier. The group is together at school when David realizes he is carrying Jessie's backpack at the time. He walks up to her to hand it to her with a greater sense of assurance, and he repeats a statement that Jessie made to him the very first time that they spoke with one another. David moves in closer to her and adds, "This is going to sound insane, but I think we're about to change the world," in response to her question on how he knew what he was going to say. Tell us what you think in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more videos like this. Thank you for watching.